Today we're talking about the Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight with S110V. As usual, I'll go through the basic facts and I'll tell you the wins, what I like, the neutrals, what I have no strong feeling for one way or another, and then the fails, the things that I don't like and that I feel that I must point out about the knife. Let's get into it. So this is a large size folding knife. The overall length of this baby, 204 millimeters, 8 and just a little bit of an inch. The blade length, 3.37 inches, 86 millimeters. Steel is S110V. Close length is 4.66 inches, 118 millimeters. The edge of the blade, so not including the forward finger troll there, 2.88 inches, 73 millimeters. This knife weighs 2.9 ounces, 82 grams. Very light. The blade thickness 3.2 millimeters at its thickest point. Handle is made of FRN. The locking mechanism is the ball bearing lock. It's a spring holding a ball bearing into a notch on the tang. It's supported by this steel bar at the back here. You can see that there. It's a full flat grind, which means the grind starts there, goes all the way down to the edge, and then there's an edge bevel. And this costs about 190 Australian dollars, or in America between, from what I can see, 120 to about 140 bucks. So let's get into what I like about the knife. First of all, the weight. This is a supremely lightweight knife for a blade and handle of this size. And the best thing is there hasn't been a great deal of compromise on its stoutness or rigidity. They've just chosen some lightweight materials to make particularly the handle out of. There is a full-size Manix, or a full weight Manix, which is 2 extra ounces, and that is due to being G10 slabs with full steel liners. Got rid of the liners entirely, and everything else about the knife, dimensions, everything is the same. So it's saved 2 ounces, which is about 60 grams or so. So that is a very, very cool thing. So despite the lack of the liners, in my experience, the knife is still very, very strong. Also, the lock is a cool locking type. There is no need ever to put your fingers in the path of the blade. So you just pinch it closed, and you either push with your hand, or once you've broken yours in a bit, you will be able to shake it shut. The blade is full flat ground, which makes it a super good slicing knife. So in my everyday carry duties, I'll be doing mostly slicing cuts, and I'll be using things like a very thin point to slice into plastic, and I'll be using the flat surface here to perhaps cut up some fruit for a cocktail, say some lime slices for a gin and tonic or something like that. Tend to use my EDC blades a lot for that, and this one does that very, very well. It slices like probably one of the better slicing knives I've ever used. Because the blade is so high, the thickness is mitigated by a very high grind, which is a great thing about a full flat grind when compared to other sort of, it's like a saber grind. It's like a saber ground knife. This is a, so say this Benchmade 940, flat part starts only here, so it's a lot less length to taper that down to a thin edge. So this will slice less good than this one here. We'll do some comparisons later, so stay tuned for that. I'll just keep going on with the wins. The blade steel is incredibly wear resistant. CPM S110V is on the very cusp of super steels at the moment. It's very, very, very edge damage resistant. So, and unlike some of the other really high-end stainless steels, it's actually fairly tough as well. So you can put this into wood, and a guy on Blade, the Spyderco forums has actually put his into cabling with wire running through them, still shaving sharp afterwards. So it's very resistant to chipping as well. The trade-off for this steel is that it is a little bit less corrosion resistant. So you'll just be getting your WD-40 out from time to time and just giving it a bit of a chuff and letting that soak, which is fine, but it's also very, very hard to sharpen, so you need to be getting your, this is where you get your guided system, things like that, because on a stone, if you're not really, really good and really, really steady with your hands, it'll be impossible. So just one thing to note, but a very, very good blade steel, and I'm certainly not going to issue any fails for steel being hard to sharpen, because you get so many more benefits for it. So the wire pocket clip is the last thing, the second to last thing. It's Spyderco's best clip in my opinion. Nice and unobtrusive looking, rides well in the pocket. It's looks a bit like a pen. It's not eye-catching to people. It doesn't instantly scream knife, which is good, especially in Australia where it's still a little bit of a no-no most places. And most of all, the ergonomics of this knife make it so comfortable to use. It just fits your hand so well. And it looks like, you know, it's a bit busy, to be honest. It looks busy, but it's really not. It just encases, the fist just encases the knife. Full contact, very solid. Plus a little bonus finger trowel there. Slightly less comfortable, but you know, much better for precise cuts. However, that grip there is just, it's entering fixed blade levels of comfort. So just ergonomics all the way, and it's probably the best attribute of this knife. It's just very comfortable, secure to use. The neutrals, the things that I just find neither here nor there. So the ball bearing lock, this lock, it's not super easy to manipulate with one hand. You definitely need to do a pinch grip and pinch it with your two hands. Especially when it's new, but it's just got a very strong spring in it, which probably means it's a long living lock, but it is just not as easy to use or as fun to use as the Benchmade Axis lock. Probably due to a couple of things. One is the spring, the second is these plastic thumb plates. They're just not as grippy as just having, say, if they just let like a bar protrude slightly, like the Axis lock does. And I'll just be running some comparison shots of those two now. So yeah, the lock isn't super fun to use. It's strong, but it just isn't as fluid as the comparable Axis lock. The action is smooth to flick it open, but it's definitely not in that sort of fun to play with level of smoothness where, you know, your ZTs and your other sort of Spydercos or your Benchmades seem to live. You probably are paying like that price for the stoutness of the knife, but just something I thought I'd mention. This isn't really a fidgeting knife, like it's not a knife that you fidgeters out there, which I am definitely one, are going to have a great time fidgeting with. It is just more of a serious and practical tool. So you won't be sitting there flicking this open as much, because there are a few inhibitors to that, one being the fairly sharp spider hole, the second being the less fun to close. It flings open pretty well, it's on bronze washers, and it's on an adjustable pivot, so it's fine, and the ball bearing is obviously round, so it rolls as the blade opens. So no issues flipping it open, but flipping it closed, just less fun. Just thought I'd point it out. Neutral. FRN. It's neutral to me. It's not a nice material. It's not good looking like aluminium is. It's not super, pleasantly grippy like G10 is. Like in this zero tolerance here. It's grippy, but it's kind of not unpleasantly grippy. It's just meh. That's exactly what it is, and you know, it's fine. It's what you pay for. It's what the, you know, why the price for this isn't an extra $50 kind of thing, and it's what makes it so light. So, but the feeling and the look of the FRN is just meh to me, and you just get imperfections on it. You can see there. There's just some finishing blobs where it's obviously come from its mold, things like that. So you're never going to get like a show and shine knife really with FRN. It's not terrible looking stuff, and it's very practical again. Practicality is what I'm really going to be repeating throughout this review. Very practical stuff, but yeah, just not nice like other handled materials are. Neutral, not a knock, just pointing it out. Now, and just the other thing, I did mention it in the steel part, you're just going to have to learn how to sharpen pretty well if you're going to have an S110V blade, or have someone who can sharpen for you. That's the only other neutral thing. Go on to the things that I don't like about the knife. Fails, you could say. So this is a very wide knife in the pocket. So, and that's an important dimension to me. So that is it's about a 2 inches wide knife at its widest point, so which is from here to here. So 2 inches wide in the pocket. When you compare it to something like this is a very slim knife, a Benchmade 940. Or even a Ontario Rat 2, which is a big knife, or even the Paramilitary 2, which is also wide in some points, but not as wide as this one. So it's very wide in the pocket, which does make it a bit of a pocket hog. The clip is good that it steers it away towards it steers this part towards the back of your pocket, so you're putting things along this edge here, which is good. But it doesn't take away the fact that it's not as carryable as lots of other EDC knives. It's probably the widest knife I own when it's closed, I would say definitely. The previous would have been probably held by a Spyderco as well. because the hole is what does it. Very ugly. So this is an ugly knife. But it's, you can see why it's ugly, because they want it to be an ergonomic masterwork. And it is. It's really, really ergonomic. But try making ergos that aren't ugly, and it is tricky. The closest Spyderco I've come is also a highly ergonomic knife for paramilitary too. But it is not quite as ergonomic as this one here. So it's just more of a simple kind of bone-shaped handle, and that's why it looks good. And they've made it out of a G10 as well. A Para 2 in FRN would probably be starting to be feeling the same, but it's just part of it. Part of an ergonomic knife, you need to have these cutouts and these bits, and you've got this really narrow, silly looking taper here, and you've got, I don't think it's a good looking knife by any stretch. And it reminds me a lot actually of, let me fetch this, it reminds me of the folding knife version of Spyderco Rock. So the Spyderco Rock is probably the most comfortable fixed blade knife I think you can get in hand. If you like a knife to really grip around, it's certainly not a variable grip, but as the grip that they offer you, it's probably one of the best. It's very similar to that in spirit, and you can sort of see where I'm going, I hope. Just, you have to make it ugly for it to be really well fitting in the hands, and that's been Spyderco's design philosophy pretty much since the start. But I just thought I'd have to point it out. This isn't going to be one of your knives that you enjoy looking at. Well, I don't think so anyway. But then, and this will sort of be the conclusion of the review really, it's a practical beast. It's a sensational knife for actually using, probably one of the best knives for actually using. If you have a job where you actually use your knife, or if you're in a situation where your EDC knife gets a lot of use rather than just, let's face it guys, a lot of us are just sitting on the couch sort of playing with them and flicking them open and closing, cutting the odd kid's toy open or whatever. If you're actually using a knife a lot of the time, this is a brilliant choice. For one, the steel won't go dull very quickly, and for two, it's just really comfortable to use, and it's safe to use because of that lock, which, although as I said isn't fun, it's super safe and it's super strong. So very, very practical minded knife. So the fails have ended there, and I've already started talking about the general conclusions. It sacrifices a lot of the stuff that knife collectors really seek in a knife, like fun locking and unlocking systems, fun deployment systems. It sacrifices a lot of that sort of stuff just to be supremely usable. So there's less sort of svelte materials and general feel factor as you would get with some of your kind of more classic EDC knives, but it's just probably going to outwork any of these at all. Flat grind, super hard steel, super comfortable handle. It's a really, really good one, and it'll serve you extremely well for actual use. Actual using your knife, not just having it in your pocket as jewelry, actually using it. But against more interesting knives, you might end up walking past it a bit. When you head out your house, you'll see your Manix, you'll see your Benchmade, you'll see your paramilitary. Just some comparisons here, folks. To start with, let's get all these in frame. You'll see these other knives and you might think, oh, well, I'm probably not going to be doing that much cutting today, so I might just get my fun knife, and I doubt you'll be choosing this one. So just something to think of. A great knife for someone who's going to be using it a lot, and a great knife for any collector to have to be your knife that you're going to use a lot, but I don't think it'll fill the same the same needs as these more sort of fancy or exotic or enjoyable or fiddly knives. So that's my review of the Spyderco Manix 2 Lightweight in S110V. Thank you so very much for watching.